G'day and welcome to another episode of Kiwi Car Life. And many have heard of the Honda Civic Type R. They've been making it for the best part of 30 years and it is the epitome of the ultra high revving, lightweight and high performance Honda Civic. A few less may have heard of the Impreza WRX STI Type R that also came out in the 1990s. Again, the most hardcore, lightweight, stripped out WRX STI. But far few people again have probably heard of this, the Mazda Lantis Type R. Much like the Honda and Subaru Type Rs, it is the latest and highest performance version of the Mazda Lantis. A very strange looking little liftback from the early 1990s. The wheels are tiny, the body styling has that very round 90s look to it. Not the best looking car ever made. However, as with a lot of 90s cars, the engine is by far and away the most fascinating part about this, because with one look under the bonnet you'll realize that this doesn't have a run-of-the-mill 2-litre 4-cylinder engine that you might otherwise expect. This has a 2-litre double cam, very high revving V6 engine, one of the smallest production 6-cylinder engines ever made. It makes 170 horsepower or 125 kilowatt, which, while not an enormous amount of power, I suppose for an engine that came out 35 years ago is not half bad at all. And it makes 180 newton meters of torque. It drives the front wheels through a close ratio 5-speed manual transmission, but what I've been told is the most impressive part about this tiny V6 is that it revs to 7,800 RPM. So while Honda managed to make more power from a 1.6 litre inline 4, and while this doesn't have VTEC, it does still rev like a Honda, and it will have that glorious small displacement 6-cylinder soundtrack to it with the correct 5-speed manual transmission. And now the interior. At face value, it looks pretty much like every other 90s car. All of the materials are very vinyl-y, with all of the center stack facing the driver. But then when you look a little bit closer, it's got adjustable intermittent wipers, which I certainly haven't seen on a car until at least the late 90s, if not early 2000s. It's got a digital clock here in the center console. It has fully automatic climate control. It's got quite a comprehensive radio screen down here. It even has power folding mirrors and full central locking. Something else I quite like is that the door cards have a giant pocket in them. The seats, while not especially well bolstered, are actually surprisingly comfortable. In many ways, unlike most other Type Rs from other brands, this is kind of almost more like a Type really nice car, because the interior is actually quite lovely. It's got a hell of a lot more features than any Civic Type R would have from the 1990s. The back seats have got heaps of room. It's actually a surprisingly nice interior. However, now it's time to put this lovely wooden Momo steering wheel, this delightful feeling 5-speed manual transmission, and that screaming 2-litre V6 engine to use. Driving the Mazda Lantis Type R. Let's hear this 8,000 RPM V6. Oh, yep. That is a fantastic engine, man. Long gears, so it's kind of unfortunate that unlike a Type R, at least from Honda anyway, you can't really get the revs like pinging at 8,000 RPM, especially on a road like this, because, you know, second gear, foot down. It does make a lovely noise, but the gears are definitely the typical 90s 5-speed long ratios that you come to expect. But the rest of the car, it's fantastic. I must admit, along with the long gears, it's running out of grip quite a lot quicker than I expected. I think maybe that could just be tires, but steering feel is fantastic. And listen to this. Man, that screams and just makes a glorious noise. And while certainly not particularly fast, it is fast enough. We're out of these corners. And while I mentioned that the tires at least are sort of giving up a little bit sooner than I perhaps expected. The balance and the poise of the car is just so well sorted. And as I mentioned, on a road like this, provided you can kind of get the revs up a little bit, the rest of the car is just so well sorted. Gearbox feels lovely, steering feels great. Long change into second, but other than that, man, this thing is so well sorted, eh? Up into third, fantastic noise from the baby V6. Great induction, and it just clings on. At only 1100 kgs, the owner told me, you can see how this thing is just so nimble and well sorted on a road like this. Man, cars from the 1990s, while unfortunately they tend to lack a bit of refinement, man alive, do they drive seriously well on roads like these. This is definitely one of the better sort of cheap 90s cars that I've driven, simply for the fact that, unlike a lot of 90s cars where they're quite impractical, they're really cheap and tinny feeling on the inside, they aren't particularly comfortable, the engines are coarse because they're, you know, not as refined as cars from at least the 2000s anyway. But this, I honestly think it's absolutely fantastic. It's got a pretty nice interior, there's no rattles at all here on the inside, it feels very well built. And then it has all of the good traits of 90s cars, a fantastic and immediate responding engine with a cable throttle. Fantastic feeling 5-speed manual transmission, although the gears are a touch on the long side. All of the driver inputs like the steering feel, the throttle, the brakes, the clutch, all of them happen immediately with no clutch delay valves, no electric steering to get in the way. It's just a brilliantly sorted and extremely raw, but with just enough creature comforts driving experience. And so with that, the Mazda Lantis, I would say, is actually a seriously excellent car. Really the only downsides is just that the gears are a bit long, it's a wee bit strange looking on the outside, and perhaps this particular one could do with some slightly better tyres, because I know that it's got more there, it's just not able to be exploited because the tyres are giving up a little bit sooner. So there we go. Thanks very much for watching this episode of Kiwi Car Life. If you'd like to see some other interesting 90s cars that I've reviewed, then click on the links popping up right about now, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.